Hello, everyone. So, I have a lot I want to discuss today. Obviously, the government has shut down as of midnight last night, um, and it's actually to the day that Trump became president last year, obviously. And what I want to discuss, I'll get to the shutdown at the end, but I want to go over a lot of different issues where the Democrats have either failed us in terms of offering a counter to the Republican draconian nonsense, or they just basically fall in line with that agenda. At least some of the Democrats do that, and I think it's incumbent upon, specifically the Democratic leaders, but the people, and I mean, the citizens that create the Democratic base to hold them accountable. And people in power also should step up and say, like, yeah, we need to actually resist Trump in the right way. Like, we're not just gonna spew rhetoric like Cory Booker grandstanding, and just say a bunch of nice words, and then secretly you're actually horrible on policy. So I want to go over all these different issues and talk about at the end the government shutdown and all my complex opinions on that. So first, the NSA spying program was expanded. The expanded program under Obama is being continued, basically. So those same powers that Obama had are going to Trump, and who's to say that Trump wouldn't expand it further? I mean, he basically wants his own private spying network. It's like his own SS, and I'll get to that. But firstly, the Democratic senators that voted to give Trump this power, I know some of their first names. I don't know all of them, so I'll just go down the list here. Carper, Bob Casey from my state of Pennsylvania, Cortez Masto, Donnelly, Tammy Duckworth, Dianne Feinstein, Hassan, Heidi Heitkamp, Jones, Tim Kaine, Mr. Soccer Dad himself, Amy Klobuchar, who was on stage with Bernie Sanders when he went up against Ted Cruz. So she's supposed to be, I guess, some kind of bridge between Bernie and the Democrats, and she's voting to allow an authoritarian to have warrantless spying power. Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Claire McCaskill, Bob Nelson, I believe, from Florida, Peters, Reed, Chuck Schumer, Shaheen, Stabenow, Warner, and Sheldon Whitehouse. So it was 21 Senate Democrats that voted for this. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, their whole line of attack is he's unfit for president, Trump, and he's can't be trusted. He's an authoritarian dictator, practically, and you're gonna vote to give him that kind of warrantless spying power that's unconstitutional. And then going back to what I said earlier about the private spying network, this is from CNN here. The founder of the controversial military contracting firm Blackwater, Eric Prince, and his allies lobbied contacts inside the administration to provide the CIA with a private network of intelligence contractors, according to a U.S. official with knowledge of the proposal. And basically what this is, it's a way for Trump to spy on political opponents. Because of all the leaks that are going on right now, he wants a way to keep his political opponents in check, and this is his way of spying on them specifically. We grew up in, or I didn't, I should say. We grew up with the history of Watergate, and that was Nixon breaking into the Watergate Hotel to get documents related to Democratic opponents, and that was a big scandal, right? And now we're floating with the idea of Trump having a spy network that he can spy on his political opponents with Eric Prince, who ran a torture site. Blackwater was a torture site. Um, so, again, this goes back to how the Democrats became complacent because these things happened under Obama too. So they don't want to oppose the policy. They are really not. They understand that they're either going to be called out and say like, "Hey, you're a hypocrite," and also they're afraid of losing the bipartisanship aspect. Like, oh, we have to all work together and get along. So completely ridiculous. Regulating or deregulating, I should say, Wall Street. Democrats joined hands with Republicans on this. And I'll go to this here. This is from The Intercept. So first I'll talk about what's in the bill itself. The amendments offer a stark choice between gift giving to some of the largest banks in America and maintaining regulatory standards to prevent taxpayer bailouts and runaway financialization. Just a side note on that. So prevent a taxpayer bailout. If something cataclysmic is to happen with the economy, just like in 2008, I mean, that's going to be floated. It's obviously going to come up as a discussion. Yeah, of course, because we have to obviously bail out the big corporations, right? Democratic aides characterize S 2155 as the next wave of corporate largesse after last week's passage of a tax overhaul with next to nothing for consumers, despite the bill title. For Democrats, let's see here. Banking Committee members Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, John Tester, and Mark Warner of Virginia negotiated S 2155 with Republican leaders. In all, 10 Democrats have co-sponsored the bill, giving it enough support to break a Senate filibuster if all Republicans sign on, which is likely to happen. So look, it's 10 Democrats, so it's not exactly the whole Democratic Party here, but it's enough to break a filibuster. If I was Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, one of the big Democratic leaders there, I would just say we have to be together, okay? We're not gonna just oppose Trump with our words. We're gonna do it with policy too. And I don't know if I can pull this up now because, oh, I know I did. So I can see the co-sponsors of this bill. Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, John Tester, Mark Warner, as I've said, Claire McCaskill, Joe Manchin. You notice a lot of these names appear again because these are the so-called moderate Democrats. Tim Kaine, Gary Peters, Michael Bennet, Christopher Coons, and Thomas Carper. So these people. So Schumer wasn't on that list. So regardless, they're talking about gutting Dodd-Frank. Okay, this is an Obama accomplishment, and they're going after it, and they're gonna gut Dodd-Frank. This is what this bill does. So it's like not even consistent on their own standards because like they want to like defend everything Obama's done, but all the good things that he's done. I mean, Dodd-Frank was not perfect. It had a lot of loopholes, but my guess is having the regulation there, like having more of it there, is going to be more beneficial than having less of it because they get away with murder as it is on Wall Street. So they're going after completely the wrong things. Their priorities are not straight at all. So then I go to Syria. With that issue, It's kind of interesting. So we see some Democratic backlash from this, and I'll read from here. This is All Monitor. I've never heard of this outlet before, but yeah, it talks about it. I'm gonna read a good deal of it because it has a lot of quotes from different Democrats, and I'm gonna go back and talk about why I think it's kind of hypocritical. So, already frustrated with Donald Trump administration's refusal to provide concrete details on U.S. military activity in Syria, congressional Democrats today firmly rebuked the president's plan to further expand American troops' mandate beyond fighting the Islamic State. Several congressional Democrats are accusing the administration of exceeding its legal mandate following Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's Wednesday announcement that the 2,000 or so U.S. soldiers in Syria will remain in the country to counter President Bashar al-Assad and his Iranian backers. I'm gravely concerned that what Secretary Tillerson mentioned is an open-ended and unstructured commitment to Syria rather than a clear strategy, Chris Coons said. Coons went on to note that the new policy comes as the Trump administration has called for a 30% cut to the State Department and development assistance, which he said could inhibit stabilization and reconstruction efforts. So I find that a little interesting. So he's cutting State Department by 30%. But my guess is, I mean, I'm assuming like the savings from that money is probably not going to be used in a very moral and just way here. But yeah, if you wanted to stabilize things in Syria, like I'm in favor of rebuilding the country, like that's fine. But just we're going beyond that at this point, and it's just like a kind of indefinite military presence there. So I'll get to some more of these quotes. I am extremely disappointed that the Trump administration announced a significant change in U.S. policy, the commitment of U.S. forces for an indefinite period of time in Syria, without first consulting Congress, Senator Ben Cardin said. The Trump administration lacks the authority to keep U.S. military forces in Syria after the defeat of IS, Islamic State. We are on the precipice of committing U.S. forces to another forever war. Tim Kaine filed suit, taking the Defense Department to task for failing to provide a witness to brief the Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committees about its plans in Syria despite long-standing requests. So I could probably go on, but see, here's the problem: is you're seeing a lot of talk throughout this article about Democrats. Oh, there's no strategy here. So they're not necessarily opposed to being in Syria. And like everyone's pretty much in favor. Yeah, we should do reconstruction efforts. In terms of the military, they just want to hear a strategy at hand here, and it's kind of interesting because I mean Obama drew the red line back in the day, and said, yeah, we're going to go after Assad, and that's what Trump and Tillerson are saying we're doing now. We're going after Assad. We've never really said we're not going to do anything about Assad. We went from we're going to go after Assad and we're allied with the people fighting him, and we realized, oh, ISIS is fighting Assad, so okay, we're actually focused on fighting ISIS now. But we don't like either side, so let's, I don't know, find a way to go after both sides. We floated the idea of arming Al-Qaeda. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure Al-Qaeda was pretty much armed through us. If it wasn't directly, then like we armed the so-called moderate rebels, and then they gave up their weapons, because there are no real moderate rebels in Syria anymore. They all fled. The moderate force that is there, like it's not at all significant. So we're basically just playing little war games here, and just deciding, oh, we're gonna give this group a bunch of military weapons. Meanwhile, like, what about the problems we have here on our own soil? Flint doesn't have clean water. The list goes on and on. Puerto Rico, so this is it's a disconnect between the elites and they're playing these games that largely, like, it doesn't have to do with national security at this point. I mean, even before, I mean, ISIS didn't have those kind of capabilities to get to the U.S. I mean, in Europe, maybe I can understand, but there wasn't an attack like that here. You had, some shootings that were ISIS inspired, but like this is to act like we have to be over there doing drone strikes and killing civilians. Like, no, like that's you can't connect those two. Like, it's not about our national security interests. I mean, just look at our military. That's what I'm saying. Like this is it's not like we're at risk here, like a real risk. Um, so okay. Now I'm gonna get to the government shutdown. So it was largely over DACA. A lot of things that needed government funding were due to expire, and the Democrats kept pushing this DACA deal. They wanted a clean DACA provision, whatever, that would be a fix to the program in the legislation, and the Republicans wouldn't let up on it, and so the government shut down. They couldn't reach an agreement. So I guess I'll talk about why the Republicans are going to probably get the lion's share of the blame, and I think probably rightly so. I mean, if it's due to just inadequate political rivalry, excuse me, like, then that's their job. Like, their job is to play politics, and they're not doing it very well. So, the hypocrisy, I think, if you want to compare it to the government shutdown under Obama, what happened with that was it was over Obamacare. The Republicans just wanted more debate. They weren't really. It's not like there was something specific that they were asking for. They just wanted to throw a wrench in the gears, whatever. So they weren't interested in like an actual policy change in that instance. And the government shut down over Obamacare, and the Republicans were largely blamed for that. So the thing is, it's different from what's going on now because the Republicans have said that they want to reach a long-term solution with DACA. They say, yeah, like they might go about it in different ways than the Democrats. I would have to imagine the Republicans are going to be more draconian. They're not going to be as forgiving in doing reform to DACA, but they have said that they want to reach a long-term solution. So it makes it kind of suspect when Republicans like, no, we don't want to deal with it now. I mean, yeah, DACA expires in March, so let's not deal with that now. Republicans just sign on to this. So the Democrats are pushing this thing. They're actively doing that, and the Republicans are saying no. But if they want the funding, and I mean, we all should want the funding because people are working right now, police officers and whoever else that's in the government that has to go into work, they're not getting paid right now. We should all want that. So if they want that, like they have to sit down with the Democrats, in my opinion. Of course, if they want to put a DACA provision in there, like, of course that's within their right to do that, and they could do that if they want to. But to be honest, I don't know why the Republicans don't do it. Probably just because they don't believe in that issue strongly of the DACA recipients being kind of in limbo, and we should do something to help them. The other thing that makes it bad for the Republicans is Trump, because first of all, he said that under Obama, a government shutdown would be the president's fault because they need to be a leader. and now the government is shut down under Trump, and so according to his own logic, he should be the one at fault. Also, Trump tweeted not too long ago, I think maybe a few months ago, like maybe we need a good government shutdown. You know, I forgot exactly what it was in reference to when he said that, but he said those words. So I almost feel like, yeah, like it's happened now. Like that's he like asked for that basically. So it's not looking good for the Republicans. My concern though is the Democrats, like maybe it looks kind of like they did this for political purposes. I mean, it is true. Like you don't really have to um, worry about DACA till it expires in March. So why push it in this particular moment? Um, and I think they just realized, like the Republicans would get blamed for the shutdown. This is actually the first time in history that the government has shut down and a single party controls, pretty much everything. The House, the Senate, governorships, most of them in the state houses. So I think they knew that the Republicans would be blamed for that, and kind of seized upon the opportunity. And that's a political move that might pay off in the end. But whether or not the true like the leftist people, progressives, are going to buy into that, I don't know. It may not even be them so much. Maybe it's the more moderate people. But actually, the people that are in the Democratic Party right now, like they're mostly moderate people, and this is it. It's obviously not progressive to have a government shutdown. It's quite the opposite. It's regressive. So, in a way, like a government shutdown is like the centrist thing to do, because you're not accomplishing anything. You're not reaching any common ground. So change nothing basically. Um, I think it's problematic. And that's not to say that it won't work for the Democrats, and that the Republicans won't get a lot of the blame, which I think they do kind of deserve a lot of the blame. I just worry about the perception, and maybe people seeing the Democrats as not necessarily caring about the everyday people that work in the government that aren't going to get paid. I worry too, like, because they're talking about reforming DACA. Like, I worry too that whatever change that comes out of it is going to basically just be watering it down. The Democrats are not strong at arguing from the left. This is a big problem that they've had. So we may end up changing DACA for the worse, actually, which I hope doesn't happen. But there's too many situations where common sense would tell you that we just need more more common sense laws. We need solutions that aren't as draconian as like black and white necessarily. It needs to kind of just I guess revolve around a more case by case basis. I was reading an article about how someone was like just a year away from qualifying for DACA, and they've been in the country for 30 years and now are at risk of being deported. So a situation like that, I can't really sit here and say like, yeah, like you don't qualify by the exact letter of the law, so I think you need to be deported. In my opinion, if you're here, if you have a high school diploma, and let's even put college in there, because I know a lot of the DACA recipients, like they either go into the military or they go to college. So if you're here contributing to society, and illegal immigrants do pay a lot of taxes, despite what you might hear on Fox News, that they may not pay certain taxes because if they don't have a social security number, but they do pay a lot in taxes, and they contribute a billion or more per year. Um, I think they should be able to stay in the country and have a life that they built here, that they've had a life here for 30 years. So unless you're a felon, unless you're a violent person, I don't think then that's where you draw the line, I would say. Um, so yeah, the Democrats, like it's a little bit of a tinge of them relying on the tactics of the GOP under Obama because they forced the shutdown in part. I just think at the end of the day, like even if I want to sit here and tell you, like, yeah, the Republicans have a lot of blame, maybe the most blame. I don't really think the Democrats have no blame in this. Um, because again, like I said earlier in the video, they aren't a strong progressive party. Like they aren't being aggressive. Like I understand, like they aren't in all the different areas in government right now. Like they aren't in charge of things like they were before. Um, but the fact of the matter is, all they have to do is just use their voice and start exciting people and getting people on board based on policy. And they don't do that. They just like to use a lot of flowery rhetoric. Um, and it's popular to a degree. Like I see people on social media now, like because today's like the next women's march, and putting up signs, and some of the signs, yeah, like some of them are funny, I guess, and they're nice, whatever. I saw someone who I know, I won't say their name, but wearing a shirt that said anybody else 20, like a campaign. Like I'm sorry, I can't back that kind of thinking. We can't just have anyone else, okay? We need someone who is going to actually stand up for the progressive values. And it's not going to be Cory Booker or maybe Kamala Harris. I mean, I kind of like Kamala Harris a little more than Cory Booker. Let's say someone like Tim Kaine. Um, so just like corporate Democrats that they just stand mostly on their rhetoric and not on the policy. Like it's not going to. I think you're at risk of repeating the 2016 election if you run a candidate like that.